Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week I'm going to start things out with what's usually a total bummer, my wife's cancer update. If you're new, my wife had stage 3 colon cancer, she beat it, and then it came back a couple months later as stage 4. Totally shitty. That pun was intended. As of today, there's been a couple of major surgeries, 20 chemo treatments, and as of now, the chemo is making her miserable. This new drug that she's on, Vectibix, really destroys her skin. She has constant painful rashes. Her cuticles split and get so painful that she can't hold things. It's really, really bad. But Ange is a trooper, and she's still able to go out at times, have drinks with her friends, and do normal things. The good news is, if you have a bad rash, that means this drug is working. And so far, the test results that we've received are showing that it's not only keeping her cancer from progressing, it may be going away. Holy fucking shit, that's the first good news we've had in some time. But I don't want to jinx us, because we'll understand so much more once she has a PET scan in a couple of months. But I'm feeling good about this, so thank you to everyone who's been thinking about us, reaching out and praying. I really do appreciate it, and the good vibes really do help. So while the doctors and the state-of-the-art medicine is working to save my wife's life, my guest this week is doing his part to try to help save the planet. Although that's not even close to how he would describe it. Reid is a social media influencer these days, and his shtick is called Nerdy About Nature. He's working hard to educate the online masses about what's going on in nature and how it affects our planet. He's the modern-day Bill Nye. But what's so cool about Ross's story is that he's a capitalism-disliking ski bum who's had a passion for the outdoors, plants and animals and nature since he was a little kid. Then he carved out a path as a ski filmer, and eventually his Nerdy About Nature alter ego came out via peer pressure from his friends, and the rest is history. I had Ross over to the studio and we had a fun walk down memory lane and we talked about what he's doing today. It's super interesting to me and I hope you're going to enjoy it as well. Before we talk nerd shit, I need to ask you to tell a friend about the show, like and comment and share my posts on social media. It really does help things grow. Finally, I want to ask you to support the people that make this show happen. I only work with the best brands. They're Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Elon Skis, Outdoor Research, Stanley, and Best Day Brewing. Now, let's talk to Reid. I'm going to start this one out with a little bit of controversy, and I know you from the ski industry, and you've become sort of an internet celebrity since then. You've become the Nerdy by Nature guy, and my controversial first question is going to be, how did your first account get banned by TikTok?
Oh, that's a great one. First of all, to correct you, it's Nerdy About Nature.
Nerdy About Nature,
yeah,
sorry.
Nerdy by Nature was obviously the go-to as a Naughty by Nature throwback. But some mycologist, like Mushroom Lady in like Indiana, already had that name, so I had to go with Nerdy About Nature. But yeah, TikTok, that's funny. So my first kind of year getting into this whole thing, this whole passion project thing, which we can kind of go into later if you want to talk about it.
Sure.
Like, it was a COVID project that kind of like spun awry. It started in December. April came around, and like my buddy Tyler Morton known from Bozeman, Montana, he lives in Squamish, BC with me in the moment. He was always joking about doing a April Fool's joke, Nudie by Nature. So I was like, that's a great pun. I love puns. Great opportunity. So I shot this Nudie About Nature segment thing on April Fool's Day. It featured me naked with a bucket hat on in the woods, and I was like pointing out, like just like, oh, you can tell it's a bush because of the way it is. You know, it's a hardwood. This is a softwood. You can tell it's a softwood. You know,
yeah.
Like all these like horrible but great, amazing puns. And I had this long like knee-high sock of my girlfriend's stuffed and hanging from like around my junk, so it was like swaying between my knees.
Yep.
And then in post I blurred it all out, so it looked like I had a third leg like dangling between my legs. Hilarious video. I thought it was funny. I just planned on posting it for the day, so I posted it that morning, kind of walked away from the internet for a while, and then I came back that evening to just see what the comments were and the reactions. And I tried logging onto TikTok, and it was just, I couldn't log onto my account. It said it had been deleted because I violated the terms of service. And then I sent like all these appeals. And I had just started out on TikTok. I think I had like 60,000 followers or something.
Oh, it's crushing.
Well, I mean, at the time, because I like thought that was all the rage. The kids are on it. I need to be hitting the kids. So yeah, that didn't go over well. Couldn't get it back. Had to restart. But that's just the way it is. You live and learn. I've been thinking about revamping that. I honestly think the one part where I did it wrong is at one point I turned around and just showed like bare ass, which I thought's pretty tame. Like you can see that in like PG-13 movies. You know? Whatever. But I think that was the piece that actually violated the TikTok terms of service. So I think if I were to redo it again, I'd just blur the butt and be totally good.
So you had 60,000 followers when it gets pulled down. How long does it take you to rebuild that TikTok account? Because I can imagine that's pretty frustrating that you have this many people, you're stoked that it's all working out, and then they're gone.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I had a different mentality on it all then as I do now. So I was like stressed. It was obviously like, I was kind of like, no, this is a bummer. Like, what am I going to do? But then I just started reposting stuff again and then committed to that. And then like it just grew again. And I don't know, social media is just such a funny world to like seek validation through. And I feel like a lot of people do that. Like we're kind of trained in this society to like seek validation through Instagram, social media, Facebook, all these numbers and likes that sort of like merit our worth or value. We're like, oh, people like me because I got so many likes and this many follows. But I find it, I mean, especially now after doing it for close to 3 years, it's just like also trivial. Like likes come and go. People unfollow for stupid, shallow reasons. I got a message today. Someone didn't like, I reposted a video about capitalizing words in nature, like certain species of tree or bears, just using capital letters to treat them as proper pronouns in the way that that kind of models the way that we value the natural world.
That's not textbook English, Ross.
It's not textbook English, but someone was like, oh, I'm so disappointed in you for singling out English. And I was like, oh, you're going to be so sensitive. He's like, unfollow. It's like, you don't need to tell me this is you're unfollowing. Like, this isn't an airport. You don't need to inform me of your departure here. Like, just fucking leave. I don't care. But yeah, so there's a lot of that. It was a bummer at the time because I had thought it, you know, was super important. But then in retrospect, it's all just numbers. And I think the overall kind of mission and vision with it is to just educate and inspire as many people who are willing to be educated and inspired. And if I say something that you're shallow enough to like want to unfollow and disengage with, and like that's not my problem. I can't be bent out of shape worrying about making people I don't know happy. Yeah. I don't know.
Cool. Well, we're going to circle back to nerdy about nature Ross later, but we're going to talk about growing up in the Northwest. And from what I remember, I think you're from the East Side and your dad was a dentist. Was that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Right.
From Redmond area, and my dad was a dentist. My mom is a nurse. She worked in the ER when I was like young, before I was born. And so she had a lot of trauma from seeing everything you could possibly see in an ER. So she was a very hands-on, strict, anxious parent. So it was always really, you know, anxious when we go skiing or not come home right like before dark, and getting a trampoline. Like I begged for a trampoline my entire life, always said no. I was like a sophomore in high school. I like saved up money. I was like working at a pizza place, saved up money, bought my own big trampoline. I was like, take it, Mom, I'm going to do it. First week, landed, broke my tailbone. And she's just like, I told you so. And I'm just like, motherfucker.
Oh, that's so funny. Were there any other Reids, or were you an only child?
I got 2 younger brothers.
Okay,
yeah,
cool. And then when you think about what you guys like to do growing up, you're near the water. Was it life all about water skiing and being on the water as a kid, and then winters being in the mountains?
Yeah, so I was super, super privileged, and I'm very like honored to have had the upbringing that I had, because like especially now as like an adult, I see what it takes, the energy it took. Like every weekend growing up from mid-November through May, or I guess through April, we would be gone every weekend up to a ski cabin in Packwood, Washington, that my family owned with my 2 cousins' families. And so it slept like 18 people. It was hectic. Everybody had little kids. There was like 9 of us running around screaming. And we went skiing every weekend, like that. We were fully dedicated. Like that was like what my dad wanted to do. And that was awesome. But now in retrospect, I look back at that. I'm like, how did you survive? Like I do 3 days with my family and like my little nieces and nephews, and like they're awesome. But like, man, it is a lot. So props to them for that. And then, yeah, in the summertime, we were doing the opposite thing, going down to Gig Harbor, where we had this like little piece of dirt and a trailer that we would go down and learn how to swim and water ski and do all that stuff. So at a very young age, my dad was like very adamant about getting us out into nature. You know, not just being like amongst it and exploring it, but like finding ways to enjoy it and make like routine out of it. So it was burdensome for us when we were younger, because it was like this routine and we were going away from our friends at school and didn't want to do it. But that kind of became just like what we did. And so now I can't imagine living life any other way. And like, it's awesome. Like skiing and being outdoors was like so integrated into us growing up that just became who I am as a person. And like through that has given me so much more appreciation for being in these outdoor places. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to instill in people through this whole nerdy about nature thing, is just getting them out on the lands, looking at things, seeing things in a slightly different way so that they can build connection to it, fall in love with it, and then ultimately that shape the way that they treat it and, you know, act in ways to further protect it for future generations.
And you mentioned Packwood, Washington, and that's where you guys would go for your ski trips. Does that mean you went to White Pass when you were younger?
White Pass represent. Love that place.
Andy Mayer says it's the best tree skiing in the world. You grew up going there. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that 100%. But yeah, don't go.
Okay. And then being that teeth are expensive, that means that there's some revenue coming in for the family, I would think. And being a nurse, I'm sure there's some money coming in as well. Did you guys go on ski vacations, or was it just skiing in the Northwest?
No, not really. We just kind of stuck to White Pass. As we got older, we did like a family trip. We took the train, again, with all my cousins. Like, we're just attached at the hip. Again, very fortunate and like privileged to have had like a very close relationship with my cousins. I recognize that as being a thing that not a lot of kids have these days. Like, yeah, I had my two little brothers who were like 1.5 and 4 years younger than me. But then like my cousin Jim was like my best friend. We're the same age. And like my cousin Suzanne, like we all grew up like just so intermeshed. So we did like, you know, a train trip out to Whitefish, Montana back in the day, or Big Mountain Resort, I think it was back then. The name has since changed. I know there was like a big uproar when it changed. I've only been there the once. So but yeah, we did that stuff. And I think we went down to like Utah when I was in college as a family, but not really. We just kind of hung around the Northwest.
And were there any team sports interests of yours when you were growing up, or was it all just going out and skiing and stuff like that?
Not really. I was a pretty, I would say, like, athletically challenged kid when it came to the team sport stuff. It took me a while to develop hand-eye coordination, I will say. So, like, I played soccer through elementary school and middle school, but, like, baseball, football, none of that, like, appealed to me. I was just, like, I couldn't care for it. I think like the social element of it like never really appealed to me, just because there was like pressure and you know, kids, like there's like ridicule, and I was never the best, so I was like always picked last or near last. So like I just stuck to skiing because it was like an independent thing. I could pick my line down the mountain, and I was kind of like competing with myself. And then my cousins, you know, like they were always like pushing me to do things. And then like we did the double black diamond team at White Pass, where I met Andy, you know, and the rest of the kids from Natchez, Yakima, like that whole zone. Yep. They were some shredders, like, you know, had families that like lived or had places at the mountain. So they were there like all the time, you know, as routine as we were, but we were just coming from the west side, the wet side. So yeah, like there were some good kids up there. And I think like as we all kind of grew up in a cohort, you like push each other and learn your boundaries. And then you're like excited to do that. That always appealed to me way more than team sports. And still to this day, I don't really give two cusses about football or what team.
You can say bad words on this, you know. I think some people say two shits, but most people that come on this show, they're super passionate about skiing when they're super young. And most people who have any passions in life, those passions develop when they're really young.
Yeah.
With you and thinking about nerdy about nature and those passions developing, I mean, I look at my kid and he started out with dinosaurs and he loved dinosaurs. Then he got into sharks and he loved sharks. And then he got into screens and he loves screens. But with you, how did that start? Were you like a second grader who found dinosaurs and just got totally nerdy about that and then just kept moving on from animal to animal to animal?
Yeah, dinosaurs are a gateway drug, 100%. And still the sickest. I was in Toronto like a couple weeks ago, and they have this amazing dinosaur exhibit there. I spent 4 hours in the dinosaur exhibit alone, just like reading every plaque, just like thrown back to being a kid, and it's great. But yeah, that's basically how it started. Like, I got into dinosaurs, was super nerdy about that. Jurassic Park changed my life. I had the family VHS camcorder because no one else really used it. So I started by doing stop motion videos of dinosaurs, like in 3rd grade.
Like figurines and stuff?
Yeah, like Jurassic Park figures eating G.I. Joes. And I got pretty technical with it at like a young age. Like I was probably like 5th grade. But I remember having the Jurassic Park soundtrack, like CD player, and headphones. And I would put the headphones over the mic of the camcorder. I didn't even have a tripod back then, so I like just had it on like a smooth rock, and I'd hit play and record at the same time with the Jurassic Park soundtrack, and do this like big pan of like dinosaurs in like my grandma's pond, like full on like na 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 na, and like just make this like epic scene, and then stop, record, pause at the same time, switch scenes, keep it on the same track, and then like same thing again to try to keep the music from going, because it was all like in camera editing, just like so basic, and yeah, it was great. And then that got me into, when I got out of high school, or was in high school, I was obviously skiing the whole time at the same time. And then I realized that I could like put together this passion for like making goofy home videos and filming things with skiing. And then that brought me to school in Montana. I did film stuff in Montana, MSU Bozeman. Shout out to all the Bobcats out there.
You're getting way ahead of ourselves, Ross.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I'm going to reel you right back in. So you got to high school. We'll get as far as high school right there.
Okay.
And you've already been out in nature doing your stop motion stuff. You've been kind of nerding about doing that. Is this all solo missions too? Do you have any friends that are about creating these videos with you? Or is it all kind of Ross by himself?
No. I had a bunch of different friends, like my friend Ryan Eastham in elementary school and middle school, who actually ended up going to school in Bozeman together. Another buddy, Jonathan Axel, which I haven't talked to him since like elementary school. I don't know if you like keep names in here.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, like we did epics, like Jurassic Park epics, dude. The plot lines, 3 acts, burn down the visitor center at the end, like load it full of fireworks. It was a time.
So when you think about how people would describe you in high school, like other people in high school, they may not be your friends or whatever, but they're like, hey, what's that Ross Reid kid all about? How would someone describe you in high school?
Oh man, probably as an asshole, probably as a dick, honestly. I was like most kids at that age. When was high school? 2000? Yeah, like 2000 to 2004 is when I was in high school. Hormones hit me hard. I was a fucking angry, upset kid. I was picked on a lot, I think, in like middle school and elementary school. So that kind of developed, like I developed a really hard exterior. And then like my defense mechanisms, like I wasn't like the biggest kid. I couldn't beat people up, but I had a fucking sharp, witty tongue, and I could talk shit like nobody else. And like I just became like slander god. Like I just ripped kids apart, like using words like for no reason, just to kind of build up a defense.
And you're such a nice person now.
Yeah, I mean, I grew out of it.
Yeah.
Like I think that gave me a good understanding of the English language and how to use words, I guess. But it all came from this like traumatized kind of defensive perspective, where it was just like I was an asshole. And then obviously Jackass came out around that same time. So like me and all my friends in high school kind of like went down the Jackass route, which isn't obviously the most thoughtful route, we're
For
like
sure.
jumping out of moving cars, the old shopping cart into the bushes. We're doing stupid shit, and with that comes like a good amount of like making fun of each other and cheap dick humor, fart jokes, all that stuff.
And you're the ringleader with the camera the whole time?
I wouldn't say I was the ringleader, but like I was definitely documenting a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever get in trouble for any of your antics back then?
Oh yeah, dude.
What was the worst of that?
So we got in trouble for a lot of stuff. I think like at some point I like showed a teacher who we thought was like a cool teacher. We're like, hey, you're going to think this stuff is funny. And we showed him, and he was like not down. He reported us to the principal, and we had an intervention there, like, because a lot of the stuff we were doing was like on school property after hours. Like we'd come back to the school on the weekend and do donuts in the parking lot. But then one of the things where we did get in trouble was we experimented with alcohol, and it was like we were, I think, seniors at this point. And one of the girls, I'm not going to name names, she was there. She started throwing up in the bathroom upstairs because she had drank too much alcohol. Me and my buddies, we thought it was hilarious. We snuck around the back and we were filming through the window of the bathroom, her throwing up and her friend holding her hair. And it was like, funny. It's high school.
Things kids do, yeah.
Things kids do. She didn't like that very much when she heard that we had video of that. And her parents didn't like that very much either. So they threatened my parents that we had like blackmail stuff. And that ended up going to the school. And then it became this like bullying thing, this harassment thing. And they threatened to like not let me graduate unless I like deleted all the videos. But there were tapes. It was like, here's the tape. Tape's destroyed. Like, what more do you want from me? They're like, we don't trust you. Like, show us your computer. I'm like, computers weren't small back then. It was like this desktop thing. I'm like, what do you want me to do? So like, yeah, that was pretty brutal.
And I don't know if this is when this started, but I've always thought of you as maybe not a fuck authority type guy, but you've always been really smart. And it's always been like, you're more fuck the man. I don't like what the man has to say and fuck that guy. Would that be a fair assessment of you?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay.
Capitalism's fucked, man.
Okay. Now it's time for my first sponsor break, and I want you to buy all of your ski and snowboard gear from Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Why Peter Glenn? Well, first and foremost, they're the little guy who's been getting people out on snow for over 65 years. They aren't trying to take over an industry by making a ton of branded products that compete with the brands they already sell. They're not trying to get you to stay at a hotel or sell you a vacation. Peter Glenn is about making sure you purchase the right products to ensure that you're going to have the most fun on the hill. And they have all the brands, all the products, and incredible deals both in-store and online. While other retailers focus on algorithms and AI, Peter Glenn is all about having the most knowledgeable staff that understands what you need. And if you've been following them on Instagram, they've been dropping some incredible pro tips that will make your time on the hill more enjoyable. At the end of the day, people have trusted Peter Glenn since 1958 because of their proven track record and all-around passion for snow and beyond. So if you ski, snowboard, inline skate, wakeboard, water ski, or need outerwear for your adventure, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports is your one-stop shop, and they offer free shipping on orders over $50, a hassle-free return policy, and they price-match reputable dealers. So please support this podcast and buy your stuff over at peterglenn.com. Next up, it's Elan Skis. I started telling you about Elan building a cult following in the States about 3 years ago. And if you're like me and heading up to the mountain on a weekly basis, I know you've been seeing more Elans. There's a reason for that. People who ski Elans notice that skiing on award-winning products made in what is considered the best factory in the world will make them a better skier. The product they put into the marketplace is second to none. I mean, Elan's a company that also makes luxury yachts, and they don't cut corners on materials or production. The difference in quality is noticeable. Walk up to any ski wall and compare the craftsmanship of an Elan ski to everything else on the wall. You'll see a difference in the fit and finish, but the most important difference is how they'll perform on snow. That's why Elan's been winning a ton of awards at the magazine tests, because they really do ski better. If you want to have more fun on the mountain this season, get on an Elan. You can find out about all things Elan over at elanskis.com. My final sponsor this round is Stanley, and if you haven't been hearing a lot about Stanley lately, you must be living under a rock. They've absolutely blown up in 2023, and everyone is talking about them. I've been telling you about how incredible their products are at keeping your drinks hotter and colder than anyone else's for about 7 years now. I mean, they invented the category in 1913, and while they always have done well, the world now knows that if you don't have a Stanley, you don't have the best. And I love having the best. Personally, I use Stanley pint glasses every single day, and I swear by them. And my wife and so many others can't live without their Stanley quenchers. And recently, I've integrated Stanley food storage devices into my ski routine. Instead of buying $20 burgers, we bring our food to the mountain and it stays piping hot in our Stanleys. And I end up saving about $70 a weekend not buying food. While that's rad, what's even radder is that Stanley offers Powell Movement listeners their biggest discount that they make available to the public. I'm going to save you 30% on all your Stanley products. Here's what you need to do to get that discount. Head on over to stanley1913.com, go shopping, and at checkout, enter the code SNOW30. That's all caps and the number 30 with no spaces, and you'll save that 30%. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. When you decide to go to college, it's time for Montana State. And do you pick that place because of the access to the mountains, because of its filmmaking program, or because you got in? What was the reason?
Yeah, both. I was going to go to school at Wazoo in Pullman there and do business just because like my two cousins were going there. I think my cousin Jim was doing business as well. And it just seemed like, just like do what everybody else is doing. And then like one of my mom's friends, I forget who exactly, they like had a chat with me at like some point in the middle of summer. And I had gotten into school in Bozeman, but like it felt far away because it was just far away from Washington at the time. But he kind of convinced me that like I should do what I love, and that was film stuff. So I hadn't said no to Bozeman, and like literally 2 weeks before school started, I like pulled the plug on Wazoo. I had like a roommate set up and like all my classes picked out at Wazoo, and I just like pulled the plug and went to Bozeman instead. And that was like one of the better decisions in my life because, you know, you have these moments in life where you like have a fork in the road.
Yeah.
And like that decision like directed a lot of the rest of my life. And I'm so happy. Like senior year of school in Bozeman, I think I skied like 136 days that year.
Holy crap.
And then like graduated middle of the class, like in like one of the most difficult theory classes. I remember setting like the bell curve on like the final.
You're that guy.
But like coming from like long ski bum hair, smoked weed every day, like did not look the part. But then like there was this one class that was so challenging and I did horrible like in that whole class up until like the last bit, and I finally like buckled down and like tried to wrap my head around understanding the theory of this. But then like I remember when we got the grades back and I was the highest one and everybody was like looking at me like, this fucking guy. I was just like, sorry guys, like I don't know what happened. But yeah, like I skied 136 days. I don't think I ever topped that again in life. Like that's
a crazy amount of days. But in thinking about your college career and studying filmmaking, it seems like nature and everything was so important to you. Was there ever a thought of studying biology and kind of going into science, or was it all filmmaking from the get-go?
Filmmaking was kind of the thing. I was obviously went there. I was like in the film department, but I had always wanted to like, I don't know, double major in biology stuff. So I started doing biology. I took a little bit of biology. And honestly, this is one of those things that kind of goes back to those high school days. Like I was never really good at math and numbers. And I remember always being intimidated by it and never quite getting the help I needed through school. Like I have this vivid memory of being in 3rd grade and doing multiplication tables with a partner. And I can't remember who it was. This girl, she's partly to blame.
You still hate her.
Yeah, this chick. I can't even remember her name. But she was really good. So I was naturally intimidated at multiplication tables. So when it was time for me to do them, she would just like fudge the numbers and be like, okay, yeah, you knew that 6 times 6 was 36. But like I didn't know that at the time. So she like fudged the numbers for me. So I was okay. And that kept me from like addressing my like being bad at math. That kind of carried on through high school. Had some really horrible, awful math teachers. This one teacher in particular who I don't want to name because I feel like that's just rude. But like really just like ruined math for me. So when I got to college and started doing biology, suddenly you get into like the physics and chemistry of it. And like the numbers, I was just like, no, not for me. So I got like almost a minor in biology. I was like 1 credit shy because of a chemistry class. And like I just didn't want to deal with numbers. So I kept kind of reading and learning about nature and biology stuff on the side in books and things where I could read at my own pace and my own level. And then just dove full on into the film world. And at that point too, like nature was always like quote unquote nature, this thing outside of the human realm that we've kind of like deemed as nature. That was always kind of an afterthought to me because I feel like that's kind of the society that we're raised in. Like even the term nature sets nature outside of the human world and it's never on equal terms. You know, we see nature and the outdoor world as resources, as playgrounds, as commodities that we take for granted to like go enjoy your Saturday and go for a ski, you know, and it's always the background. It's never like the integration into life. And so at that point in my life, you know, I was filming ski movies in nature and like always out doing that. And then through college, you know, that was when Planet Earth came out. I got like super into Planet Earth and always loved and idolized the idea of filming Planet Earth stuff and like going and camping and like trying to film monkeys for a month in Borneo. That always sounded cool to me, but I never had like the follow through. Like it was like a cool pipe dream, but it was like just too far gone. Like I wanted to ski, you know?
So with your dreams of what you wanted to do with your filmmaking, was it to work in the ski industry or was it to get that trip to go film those monkeys? What was your thought process? Or was it a Hollywood type deal?
I mean, in college, you know, I was figuring it out, flying by the seam of my pants, just trying to get through. And I think at one point I like really entertained the Hollywood element of things. But then my senior year, I got an internship with Poor Boyz. Cody Carter. Shout out to Code Man.
You got that internship through a New Schoolers post, right?
Was it a New Schoolers post?
It was a New Schoolers post asking for someone to help out on a shoot at Schweitzer.
How do you know this?
Look, that's what my job, Ross. That's why you're here interviewing. It was for Jib Jam, I believe.
Yeah, it was
and
Jib
it was
Jam.
The second shoot at Schweitzer. And they were looking for someone to come along, and they put a post up there. You answered Cody Carter, and the rest is history.
Is that post still on New Schoolers?
I don't know if it's still there. It probably is.
Wild. Yeah, I think that was it. So I went to Schweitzer mid-April, my senior year in college. Helped film with like a bunch of like up-and-coming pros. Matt Margetts, that was the first time I met Marge. He was there. Dane Tudor was there.
Okay.
John Sims was there. That guy was, I remember him being like, that dude's hilarious.
Spriggs, was he there at that
Spriggs
one?
was there. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it was that era of skiing.
Yeah.
And that's how you get into
And
skiing.
they were all just coming up. This was like their first kind of invite to a Poor Boyz event as well, I think. Ben Moxham.
Yeah, I remember Ben. And so before we get into this Poor Boy shoot, because I want to talk about it, but I first want to talk about a side hustle that you had in college. One thing that I always found interesting about you is you're always multitasking. You've got like 8 things going on at all times, and you're always driving yourself crazy. And you're probably wondering, why am I going so crazy so often? But it's because you've got so many things going on. And when you're in college or maybe end of high school, early college, you start Rime Elements, I think, that becomes Rime Knits. And the thing about you is like you're an old soul and a deep thinker. So when I think about Rime Knits or Rime Elements, I don't remember what been called both things before. first, how do you come up with the name Rime? Because that's going to be your deep thinker thing. What was the rhyme about?
God, dude. Have I always been that scatterbrained? You're really making me think here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've known you for a bit.
Yeah. I get bored easily, so I like to have multiple things in the fire, if you will.
And they're all quality things. It's not like there's anything
Yeah.
that's half-assed. It's like something you have to go 100% in.
To its detriment, though. Like, part of me thinks back and reflects on those rhyme days, and it's like, oh, I could have really made something out of that if I had put all in on it. But at the same time, capitalism, I don't want to be selling things. That's kind of why I stopped doing that.
Okay, so Rime was a hat brand, a knitted hat brand. That you started.
R-I-M-E.
And it was called Rime because...
Because rime is like a type of frost that forms, and there's a lot of moisture in the air and cold surfaces at night. Typically, the moisture will adhere as a frost. It's like the rime that you find on like your windshield when like the season's approaching. To me, it was this like natural kind of phenomenon that like embodied the kind of shift in seasons and towards winter. So rime obviously became like the natural thing. Like my aunt taught me how to knit when we were in high school up at that ski cabin in Packwood. Just like long days. We didn't have cable or internet back then. It was before phones existed. So we hung around the fire. Like my aunt taught me and my cousin how to knit. And like that just became a thing that I did. So I started knitting hats for friends in college and using the name Rime Knits to get it through. And like, you know, it was like $20 a hat, I remember, or like a bag of weed. You know, I just like slanging hats to friends. And if I was passenger seat in the car going up to Big Sky in Bozeman, like I could pump out a hat in one day, like a there and back, like return trip. I just sit in passenger seat with my needles and a couple of balls of yarn at my feet and just like whip out a hat for Buddy in the back seat. Trade me a bag of weed. Huh. That's the humble beginnings.
So that's, you know, the humble beginnings of the side hustle. And the cool thing about it is eventually when it becomes a business is for every hat you sell, you're going to plant a tree.
Yeah. And that was before everybody was doing it.
That was like before
edge.
Tom was giving away shoes to kids.
Oh, yeah, way before that.
So the one thing that I've also noticed about you, and you kind of brought it up with the whole math thing, which I didn't know, but now I know. But in terms of working with you at K2, I feel like the creative process and everything you did, you know, the planning, everything you were so good at. But if I handed you a budget, that's kind of when you kind of got frazzled.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to deal with this.
Numbers, man.
Just tell me what I have to spend and I'll spend it and I don't want to deal with it. So it made me think that maybe you're a creative and the business part of things isn't your forte. But then I think about your life and times and like in 2010, you start Ross J. Reid Media. I think in 2014 or something like that, it's Hemlock Creative. And these are media houses where you're creating projects and you are the point person for creating all of these projects. When you think about you in the business world, how are you at getting new business, at doing the pitch meetings, at getting the contracts and doing all of that stuff and closing the deals? Is that the hard part for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm terrible at that. You nailed it. Like creative, 100%, numbers business, I struggle with immensely. Yeah. I think that was part of the reason. So I ended up, well, as you know, and we'll probably get to. When I left K2, I went to school in Australia for 2 years to get an MBA.
In business?
In business.
Yeah.
I kind of treated that as kind of like a know your enemy thing at the time. Just like, oh, I want to do business and business runs the world. So I kind of pursued that. And in doing so, it kind of reaffirmed all the things that I knew was terrible about business and the way that it like was treating the world. Like I remember like asking like a question in, I don't even know what class, about like externalities and like, who's going to clean up the rivers? Or like, is there any incentive in capitalism to like take care of the planet? And they're like, oh, well, CSR, your corporate social responsibility, which is basically just like companies learning how to greenwash me. Like, oh, see, we didn't pollute that river because the government put regulations and kept us from polluting that river. But, you know, by all means, they would have continued to do so if they were allowed to. But then turning that regulation restriction around and being like, we saved this river from being polluted because we're good stewards of the planet. Like, and then just like learning all the ins and outs of the greenwashing and how terrible the business stuff is and kind of reaffirming in me that I didn't actually want to continue to do that business stuff. So then I kind of had a brief moment where I tried to like reinvigorate Rime Knits and rebranded it as Rime Elements and tried to do more with it. Tried to get funding and support, like trying to get like investors. Because in my mind, I wanted to actually do like a business or a clothing brand, but do it ethically well, where it's like not just like the CSR type aspects of it, the additional little bonuses aren't an afterthought to like make a greenwash product to sell more of it, where it's like embedded in like the ethos of a company. I like really was driven to do that. But again, numbers, funding, like I couldn't make it happen on a shoestring budget. And I also had a hard time selling the idea to people who had money, and I don't find myself to be a very good salesperson naturally, so I just kind of humbly bowed out after about a decade of trying to push that uphill.
So it seems like maybe not a waste of time going to get your MBA in business, but teaching you everything you hated about business and reaffirming it all. And then reaffirming the fact that you are a creative and that's where you're going to be the most successful is doing your creative stuff. And when you think about the business stuff, because you still have to do a lot of that. I mean, now, even with your nerdy about nature stuff, there's new business development. You might not be the best at it, but there's definitely stuff that you could be doing to generate revenue for your project that you're doing. But when you think about your businesses, so in Hemlock Creative, Ross J. Reid Media, what is the biggest job that you were able to land? Like going into a meeting, you give them the pitch and you walk out and you're like, that's my job. I nailed that one. Do you have a meeting that you walked out of like feeling really good like that?
In the film world?
Anywhere really. But I would think in the film world because that's really where you operate.
Well, I was going to say like the only time where I could feel like I really did that was like 2018.
Okay.
2019. That was like the first time in my like quote unquote film career where I feel like I like got to a point when I had like a good pitch and like a solid project that like I was passionate about and that I loved to do. Like I'd worked like higher paying random jobs before and like those are cool and like whatever, I'm shooting this thing for whatever client. But like when it comes to selling something of mine, like even like the Tamashii thing, like I got like hardly any funding for that. Like that was all like I had to rely on
GoFundMe, right?
Or Kickstarter?
Yeah,
or something?
Kickstarter,
one of those
things,
yeah. And like that was like brutal, dude. Like I hated that. And like just barely scraping by. Like to this day, like I lost money on that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. So you lost money on that one. But yeah, so that's not been your best type deal. Has there ever been a meeting where you walked in, you gave your pitch, and you walked out and you're like, there's no way I'm getting that job. I was just a total joke.
So many. I remember having some connections at like kind of more corporate-y gigs. And this is like in between Poor Boyz and K2 days, maybe just after K2 days, where I was trying to do more freelance stuff, that kind of Ross J. Reid media phase. And being like, yeah, I could make this series of product videos or like corporate videos for you. But like going in with my best wrinkled button-up shirt and like long hair and like just still being like a ski bum at heart, but trying to act professional and having the meetings and then like not getting the job and being like, fair.
Yeah, that's frustrating, but it's a lesson learned. You know, I think when you go in and you get told no, you learn a lesson every time that happens. And we'll go to college now because we've kind of been bouncing around, but we're going to bring it back to college. And you had seen the thing on New Schoolers for Poor Boyz. You had reached out to Cody and you had started your conversation with Poor Boyz first. At that point in the ski industry, where was Poor Boyz in the landscape of ski media? I mean, they were one of the top producers out there, right?
They were huge. That was the year that we were working on Reasons. So I was super stoked to be able to come down and work on Reasons. But prior to that, you know, like they were like the free skiing movie company to be working for. And especially in my mind from like a more core skier element, like they had way more street cred than like an MSP, for example. Level 1 also was like pretty high gun. And I remember like hearing about this Kyle Decker kid on the internet on New Schoolers,
right? And
being like so kind of like low-key jealous that he was getting all the gigs with Level 1 and being like, motherfucker, dude, I can shoot better than Kyle Decker. So yeah, like then obviously I know Kyle because it's ski industry. So yeah, but just a funny kind of competitive thing there.
Yeah, and I mean, he's gone on to do some phenomenal things in the ski industry, too. Still one of the bigger names in ski filming, where you've kind of bowed out, it seems like, from ski filming for the most part. Is that correct?
From the day-to-day, I'd say. Like, nowadays, I'm more focused on, like, storytelling. The storytelling elements of, like, outdoor and action sports stuff. So, like, I don't think of myself solely as a ski filmer. I still do a couple of things from time to time, but I've been mostly saying no to work lately just because... As you and I were saying before we started recording, like I'm late 30s now. Keeping up with 20-year-old kids with egos on skis when I've got a 60 to 80-pound bag on my back is a lot harder on my knees and my back than it used to be. And I'm really enjoying being able to ski for fun, for a change, you know? I feel like there was a good time in my life after working for Poor Boyz and at K2 and doing all these amazing, incredible things where I just like realized like I've been to some incredible places, some of the most incredibly beautiful places in the entire world, peak conditions, you know, chest deep, blower pow, bluebird day, and I've had to sit at the bottom and watch other people shred it all day.
Yeah.
And like maybe I get like a free 200-meter lap while they tour up. I like boot pack something really quick to like hit a little pillow and then back at the camera. But like it was just kind of soul sucking at the end. Like I think I ended up losing a lot of that passion for skiing in general because it just became work. And that sucked.
Have you gotten the passion back? I mean, do you still get out there on HellBents? Because I'm guessing that's all you ski on, right?
Dude, HellBent or bust, dude. I've got a pair of 2009 HellBents that are still my daily drivers, and a pair of what year was the birds? You know, like the old birds in the...
I think it was 11.
Yeah, I've got a pair of those that I've got touring bindings on, and like still the best skis ever. Yeah, man, they don't make them like they used to. Those things are still like, those are bomber. I will be skiing on those until I stop skiing in my life.
It's time for my final sponsor break, and I can't tell you how much I love my gear from Outdoor Research. When I signed on with OR, I knew there wasn't an outerwear brand on the market that performs as well as what OR is developing. That's what happens when you test your gear in the absolutely terrible conditions that we can get here in the Pacific Northwest. Days in the mountains are always more fun when you're warm and dry, and I know my OR gear will always deliver that. I'll tell you, on cold days, I live in my cold front hoodie, which is hands down the warmest and most stylish puffy I've ever owned. And then when I get on snow, my snow crew jacket and pants are not only warm, but it's one of those fits where if you don't see me ski, I look like a pro. I'm so impressed with the style that OR has been bringing to the table lately. And off snow, they sent me some Feroci pants, which are now my daily drivers. Think stylish, lightweight, packable, do-anything pants with the right amount of zippered pockets and stretch to be the only pant that you'll ever need. I love them. And really, I've been loving OR products since I bought my first OR rain jacket in 2000. And I'm going to save you 25% on your OR gear. Here's what you need to do. Head on over to outdoorresearch.com, go shopping, and when you check out, enter the code SNOW25 and you'll get the deal. That's all caps, no spaces, and the number 25. My final sponsor this round is Best Day Brewing. If you haven't heard of Best Day, they are hands down the best tasting non-alcoholic beer on the market. I enjoy Best Day for so many reasons. The flavor is the most important. I swear by the hazy IPA, the Kolsch, and the Belgian White. They all taste just as good or better than their alcoholic cousins. And I'll tell you, while I haven't quit drinking, when I go to the bar, after 3 or 4 beers, I usually feel like it's time for me to head home, and everyone thinks I'm lame. But lately, I have a new routine. I'll have a Best Day every 3rd beer, and it makes my night last twice as long. And we all know lasting longer is better. If you want to have your best day or night ever, or just enjoy a few cold ones at Après, grab a Best Day, and you can forget about the calories, forget about the alcohol, and forget about getting in trouble on the way home. To see all the flavors and order some beer, head on over to bestday.com. And if you're flying Alaska, you can now get a Best Day Kolsch at 30,000 feet. Those are my sponsors. Now let's get back into the podcast. Thinking about you getting your gig with Poor Boyz, so you've done the emailing with Cody Carter, you get to Schweitzer, you show up, there's all these skiers, and I'm guessing that it's the first time you're seeing pro-level skiing. Maybe not the first time, but having all of these badasses right in front of your camera, being able to shoot 30 dudes at a park jump that are just fucking blowing your mind. Are there any nerves showing up for a Poor Boyz shoot and being the Poor Boyz cameraman?
Yeah, well, I mean, that first shoot at Schweitzer was definitely like very much like show up and kind of prove it type thing. I was just like focused on trying to get the best shot, but I had like, I can't remember what I think I was filming on like mini DV or something. It wasn't even HD. Like, it wasn't going to the movie. What the shit I was filming, like, it was like personal thing. I was like, oh, I'm going to make an edit later after this. But I remember being like pretty enamored. Like, I always thought of myself as like a fairly competent skier, and like I can make it down a lot of stuff. But like, I remember like one moment seeing Matt Margette's. There was this like elevated rainbow box thing, and he was doing these like lofty like hand drag 3s and 5s over it. And then like seeing the way like he'd miss the hand drag but still be able to like kick and like land like a cat, you know, like get feet under and being like, God damn, there's no way I'm able to do that.
Right.
Like, yeah, that's some next level shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the talent that you see on skis out there.
Oh, and especially like towards the end of the days with K2, like Andrew Partridge, like I remember doing park shoots with these kids and like just being blown away by like just insane, man.
With Poor Boyz, you're shooting in the winter and some of spring. Then it's down to LA where you're editing and focusing on that. And then there's windsurfing movies and all different stuff that you're a part of with them. Do you have to move to Southern California when you graduate to start living that dream?
Yeah, and to me that was not a dream at the time. It was something that like had to grow on me pretty rough. Like I wanted to be in the mountains. Like I was like a mountain kid. Especially coming from Montana, like the last place I wanted to be was downtown LA. And Johnny, you know, bless his heart, like that dude is like such an eternal optimist. I love that about him. He was always just trying to make the best positive spin on any situation. And so like, yeah, I lived in LA for the summers and spent the rest of my time basing out of Bellingham and Mount Baker. But LA was a tough one to get into. I think like getting into surf made it better. And like, man, I remember going there with another guy who was like interning with them at the time, and I'd never surfed before. I'd wakeboarded and like water skied. But like the first time we were going out surfing, it was like my first day in LA. And I had my dad's like this big longboard that he had got from somebody like years ago in Washington that I brought down with me, like thinking I was going to like learn how to surf. I remember putting my board shorts on outside of my wetsuit because like that's what you do in like when you're wakeboarding, you know, just like being such a kook and walking down from the like our place in Redondo Beach to the pier, shit, windblown onshore waves, and trying to like get out there and surf, and then coming back and it's like Tyler Hamlet, JP Auclair, Julian Regnier. How do you say that? Renier, yeah. And like just being like fucking kook in a wetsuit with board shorts on outside of it, showing up to like my fucking ski idols. And then, yeah, like I remember the first time I met JP and Julian, I was crashing on a mattress on the floor at Johnny's house on the mid-level floor. Like he was working on bringing his family over from Venezuela Colombia at the time, yeah. But the house was empty at that point. Like, I think he had a bed in a room upstairs, but everything else, it was just, like, mattresses on the floor. And, like, one of my first nights being there, being woken up by JP and Julian at, like, 5 in the morning. It's like, psst, and just this Quebec accent, like, hey, you want to go surf? Like, we've been like, what? No, man, like, I don't know how to surf. Like, just saying no, like, turning that down because I was, like, so uncomfortable with the idea of, like, doing that with, like, my ski idols, you know? And then, like, they went, and, yeah, it was just a humbling summer, that first one, for sure.
You're in your 20s, so it's a great time to kind of live like a dirtbag like that.
Oh, yeah.
But does it go from the editing bay all summer to then going on the movie tour all fall? Do you get to experience that as well?
Oh, yeah.
What's the debauchery of being on a tour like that all about? And what's your role there? Do you have to do anything, or you just kind of show up and make sure they're playing the movie?
God, dude. To be honest with you, I've kind of blocked out those memories because it was so, like, you're bringing this up now. I haven't thought about the tour in a long time. That was hell. It was super fun at times, for sure. Great when you're a kid. Just thrown into the ringer with Cody Carter on the Triple Threat Tour, 2008. God, dude, what a time. Yeah, I mean, we're going around drinking excessively. That whole era was, like, a very party intense time. And, like, I was just, like, basically functioning to keep things from not totally falling apart.
Okay.
Like, there was this one theater in Oregon we played to, and like the projector overheated, like, second movie, and we had to refund everybody. And we'd been drinking because it's like, it's the ski movie tour, that's like what you're doing, and like trying to refund everybody at the door and like maintain and hold it together. It was like total clusterfuck. Yeah, it was a very stressful time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I've fully blocked a lot of those memories out because I don't even enjoy reflecting on some of that.
Well, let's think of the memories from Poor Boyz that you haven't blocked out. When you think of the highlight trips with the idol-type athletes, what was like the best of Poor Boyz?
And just to be clear, Poor Boyz was great. It was just the tour that was a nightmare.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, yeah, the first year I didn't really do too many trips. That first year at Poor Boyz was kind of also the year that Dirty was like really blowing up.
Yep.
And I shot like pretty much half of Dirty's part, I think, that year. I think me and Pete Alport out of Bend had shot like the rest of it, and then maybe a couple other little clips there. But like, he spent a good amount of time with me. Like, we did a road trip in Montana, went back to Big Sky, shot with him and Colin Collins, and a bunch of my friends from back there. That was a pretty fun time because like Dirty and I were like homies. It was just like hanging with a ski buddy, and he was obviously like a much more gifted skier than I was. But like filming that and being able to collaborate with that and be goofy and fun and like have some great days on the hill was like a riot.
When I think about Poor Boyz, the name is Poor Boyz.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that everything is on a shoestring budget. Was that kind of how it was? Was it always dirtbag, or were there any lavish trips?
I think it was pretty much always dirtbag. Especially on the tour. Like, there were a couple times when we get hotels, but mostly we were just crashing at friends' places, like on couches or spare rooms. Stayed with Cody's parents for like, I don't know, a week in Idaho. I remember that being the thing when I first went on that Schweitzer trip, being kind of like blown away by how ragtag it was. And little did I know that was basically like my introduction to the ski industry. Right. I was like, it's all like this. I like had in my mind like Poor Boyz Productions, legit production company, but then like
craft services.
Yeah, and then like people are like throwing it together, drinking Red Bulls, and just like, yeah, it was great. Like, no complaints, but it was definitely not what I had pictured in my head. And I think a lot of kids, even today, like, I did a filmmaking ski camp thing at Momentum a couple summers ago, and, like, all these kids, you know, who were all pumped to get into ski movie making and doing this. And, like, I remember just loving the opportunity to share my craft with these kids and be like, oh, teach them about like the 180-degree rule and like applying that to filming jumps and like all these like kind of more technical filmmaking terms and processes and showing them how to do that in a ski filming thing. But then also being amazed at like them thinking that like ski filming was this like big budget, like swanky thing and having to like level down like, no, dude, get a car you can sleep in and like learn how to stay warm in some pretty shitty scenarios because that's what's going to cut your teeth in making it in the ski movie industry.
Yeah. There's only one filmer that shoots Candide.
Yeah, basically.
And then with Poor Boyz, they had the whole water part of things. They had the whole windsurfing movie. Mm-hmm. Were you a part of that?
Yeah, I got roped into doing I say roped into as if it was like I didn't want to do it. I was stoked on the opportunity. I went down to Hawaii and lived in Paia or Haiku for like a summer with like Jace Penabianco and like Levi Siver, like all these like windsurfing guys making the windsurfing movie 2. Oh, and Chris Osnes was part of that.
That guy's like a legendary filmmaker. Do you learn a lot from a dude like that in just terms of creativity?
Well, legendary skier, like I had known of him in the line days, but I never met him until we did that project together. And that's always a funny thing, like meeting kind of like idol of sorts, but like in a completely different setting. Like he was there as like a creative director, and I was just like, hey man, I liked what you did on skis 2 decades ago, you know? But yeah, he was there and like getting to like be involved in some wind sports and spend like a summer in Hawaii. I was stoked. Yeah. And then I ended up kind of directing and editing a film that we did for Oxbow, which I think is a brand that has since gone out of business. The Oxbow Waterman Experience, which I don't even think exists online anymore, unfortunately. That was dope. I like that movie. I think I did some good creative stuff with that, considering it was all like 1080p, like pretty low quality back at that time. But I got to interview like Laird Hamilton and shoot with him and Levi and Dwayne DeSoto, who's this like incredible longboarder who like to this day inspires me with his surfing. Yeah, that was a rad experience. And Kai Lenny was like 12 back then. Like interviewing Kai Lenny, and now he's like this
god.
Yeah, like god of water sports.
Yeah. Between him and Laird, it's like you have the gods of water sports, I feel like. I interviewed another one last week, Jerry Lopez.
Did you interview Lopez?
Yeah, it's coming up on Monday.
That's incredible. I have this hilarious photo that I could send you if you do Instagram stuff of me and Laird at the time, because I interviewed him with Johnny. I'm in this like baggy ass Dakine t-shirt, flat bill hat, and Laird is like the Hulk next to me. And I'm just like, thumbs up, like, sick, dude.
I would love that photo to promote with that. This is also around the time that you were learning motion graphics too, I believe.
Yeah.
And is this kind of like, I know how to film, I know how to edit, I know all the technical aspects of everything. Once I learn motion graphics, I'm a one-stop shop for producing content?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's part of like what you mentioned before, where like I have a lot of like passions and hobbies and like to stay kind of busy tinkering with things. So like there was that element to it. There was also the element of like, oh, like if I can gain a skill or an asset that other people don't have and kind of become more of that jack of all trades, master of none kind of mentality, where I feel like I can do a lot of different things at a pretty good level, but like don't necessarily specialize in one of them. Especially at that period in time in like the ski industry and film industry, it was a very applicable role where I was able to like adapt to like this crazy new thing called the internet and streaming services, you know, water product videos, making bumpers for brands, like all that sort of thing. That was all like brand new at that time. Like DVD sales was like on the out when I got into it, you know, which was kind of the heyday of ski filmmaking, because like you were getting a relatively reliable source of income. After that, like as soon as things went to like webisodes and Solomon TV, Freeski TV, and all the internet stuff, and especially now with Instagram and stuff, it's so hard to make revenue. It's so hard to get like consistent sponsorship. So it's like the people doing it today are really doing it on a shoestring, I feel like. More so than even in my time getting into it. And having that like diverse set of skills, I feel like makes you more applicable, because then you're like able to like not just film, but you can film it and you can edit it, you can throw some motion graphics on it and make it fancy for like a limited budget. It's like you just crushed it, you know?
And that's, I think, when you and I met and we started working together, because at K2, the product videos that K2 put out in year one were made by maybe one of the greatest filmmakers ever, myself, and they weren't that great, but we did what we needed to do. But in year two, it was like, we need to level these things up. And I think that's when we came to you and pitched you with building product videos. Did you start with product videos with us?
I'm trying to remember how that began.
I think it was product videos.
Because I went to that shoot in Colorado. Lexi was there. Caroline Gleich was there. Kim Reichhelm. The Chris brothers. And we were shooting product videos on like groomers. We were just doing all the skis.
That was like the -40 day, wasn't it?
It was terrible, yeah.
Yeah, it was the day that guy's toe swelled up because...
Oh my God, yeah.
I have a picture of that.
Who was that?
It was one of Joe Erfel's friends who was a ski racer who showed up in plug boots in -40-degree weather. We were like, hey, man, we can go get you a different set of boots. And he was like, nah, man, I ski my best in these. And they were like 3 sizes too small for him.
Product videos.
Yeah.
For like a good corduroy turn.
And we couldn't use any of the footage because everybody was wearing such big puffy coats that it made it look like it was so cold. But this is when we met you at K2, and it was the worst photo shoot ever because of the weather.
That guy lost his toe.
Oh, he didn't lose it.
I mean...
It was really, really bad.
Yeah.
I have pictures of my hair frozen, and I was able to break it because it was that cold. It was insane. I'd never been to anything like that. But you were our hired gun for product videos. Then you became a hired gun for different one-off projects.
K2 Skis.
Yeah, K2 Skis, the movie. Which
God, that was sick.
We were doing that with Poor Boyz, and then you became our point person there. And I will say that I've always looked at you as the guy who is maybe anti-corporation, anti-made in China, anti all of those things. But when we at K2 put a job up for a social media and a video producer, we were almost begging you to apply for that job. And it meant working for a major corporation that does a lot of business in China and has a huge carbon footprint. And I would think those are all boxes that you would never want to work for. Mm-hmm. What made you decide to apply for that job and take it?
Because K2 was like a dream company back then. Like I grew up riding K2s, skiing K2s. All of my like idols at that time were on K2s. Everyone from Shane McConkey to Pep and Andy. They were just like changing the way that skiing was being done, and that was like so inspiring. So to be able to like work with that brand that I found to be so inspiring, and even now looking at this photo of Wayne Wong you've got next to you, like K2 had always been like pushing what skiing was, and I think that was like a really exciting thing for me to be involved in. As things kind of evolved, I realized it just wasn't for me because of all those reasons you said.
And I would say, you came in to a great team. We had a really great internal team, and it was a really cool company, especially at that time and for progressing skiing. But I think it's important to note, can you describe how overworked you were at that point in your life?
Oh my God, dude. So overworked. But like, again, I think I'm really fortunate to be able to say that I was at Poor Boyz during peak Poor Boyz and K2 at peak K2. I mean, I heard a lot of great stories about Vashon. That may have actually been peak K2. I was after that era. But yeah, that whole thing, as with any job in the ski industry, like you weren't doing it for the money, you were doing it for the love. And the people who were running the company kind of dangled that carrot in front of you. It was always like, oh, I know you're working 60 hours a week and staying late and like putting in 12-hour, 14-hour days in this office with no windows and no escape. But isn't it cool, man? Like, all your friends, like, they're probably so jealous of you, man. Like, look at all these skis that you get, man. It's like, fuck, I can't pay my rent on skis and high fives, you know? When it comes to, like, living a life, it doesn't really check out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived that same experience as you, understanding that skis aren't going to pay my bills. But I also look at it as some of the best times of my work career.
Oh, yeah.
And in terms of your work career, you were constantly on the road, constantly in different places. And there was finally a budget to spend money and you could actually eat in restaurants. Did that change everything for you?
That was pretty awesome. I mean, yeah, for sure. The traveling side and like, again, doing fun things with great people, even going to the trade shows is like kind of annoying and overwhelming as that was. Like, yeah, it was peak over the top capitalism selling a lot of really expensive high-end shit that people don't necessarily need to have fun and enjoy their time outside. But it was with great people. And like, I loved that. Additionally, like when we were driving over here, like I ripped by that house that Alyssa and Casey and I lived at here in West Seattle. And I think that was the first time in my life that I had stability and I wasn't living out of like a suitcase. Yeah, the back of a Subaru. So like even reminiscing on having the consistency in the summertime to like be able to bike to work through West Seattle and the industrial district and go down to that Mexican place for lunch with like friends. That was like the first time that I had a good community of stability and I wasn't just like working for myself, by myself remotely on some Wi-Fi at a coffee shop somewhere. That was great. I love that.
Project-wise, you did so many things. You came in with this vision of, I'm going to create 3 different webisode series. I'm going to have all these product videos. Now, I think eventually we had to hire out for product videos because you got so busy with your projects.
Yeah.
Did you almost load your plate so much that you're overwhelmed at K2?
No, I thought that was all pretty manageable. I think if anything, it was like outside circumstances that made that time at K2 difficult. And the fact that there wasn't like Yeah, I mean, like, you can only work for so long and not be appreciated for the work you're doing. And I think when I came in, I pitched that whole K2skis.com thing, which for those who remember what K2skis.com was, that was sick.
It was
I
awesome.
still stand by that. So we had, the Misfits episode, which was like the female-focused free skiing episode with like Anna, Lexi, Amy... Engerbretson, yeah, and...
McKenna Peterson,
thank you, yeah. And then we had like the Backcountry Tool series with Hatrip. That first season was like 22 episodes or something. It was like Backcountry Essentials, from like as basic of how to put on your skins to how to set a skin trail to like this is how you break apart a cornice and reduce like avalanche debris, like all sorts of technical stuff.
Before anybody was doing
this, we had like youth series. We had all of that stuff, and it was all being produced by me. And then I think I got like an intern. I got a couple interns. I had a couple interns there that were like great help and who I like work with moving into the future. But it was like you could only do so much. And I think like for me, that was like very much like a prove it project because I really believed in it and I wanted to see it happen. So when we got to a point when we were like executing and getting good feedback and it was like, it was sick, everybody was on board with it, but then not seeing any more budget or energy or efforts being put towards it. And if anything, felt like energy and effort was being pulled away from it. That was just kind of like disappointing to me. And that was like one of a few kind of nails in that coffin where I was just like, this is not how I want to be spending my time.
Well, you created more content than any ski company on the planet at that point. No one even came close to the original content that K2 put out. I mean, Solomon was doing stuff with Free Ski TV, but you were putting out so much more than that for that 1 or 2 years. It was crazy what was coming out of your brain and your computer.
And that was like before Instagram and stuff, but it was almost kind of that market. Like Solomon Free Ski TV at the time was kind of like 20, 25 minute, longer episodes. And we were kind of really hitting that like 1 to 5 minute, shorter, more digestible things. And that was great, dude. I loved that.
So your time ends at K2. We don't need to talk about anything else there. But the next thing I want to talk about is what you do after K2. Tamashii, this is a project, and the vision behind the movie was you were going to be disconnected. All of the athletes weren't going to have their computers. They weren't going to have their cell phones. They're going to be totally disconnected from society. And the thing that was crazy to me was it's an interesting vision there. It's a social experiment that Ross is putting on. Totally Ross Reid right there. Hey, guys, we're just going to focus on skiing. We're not going to be connected, and we're not going to be doing all this stuff that we're always doing. We're going to be present with each other. You sell everybody on it. And then when you raise money for the movie, you go straight to Kickstarter, which kind of is like, wait a second. We're not going to be connected, but to find out about this movie, to buy this movie, to watch this movie, to hear about this movie, you have to be connected, but we're not going to be connected at all. Was that kind of the vision?
Yeah, I mean, it was hypocritical in the sense that like it was all about getting off of phones and technology to like enjoy the present moment with the people that you're with in the outdoor spaces that you're enjoying. But that was the era. Like there's no other way to connect with people other than being on the internet. Like especially back then, like I had to push it through that. And I had gone into debt to like make that thing. Like we needed like money to like pay back. You know, like Jasper Newton came on that trip. Great filmmaker who's gone on to do some amazing things with Odessa and different kind of entertainment things. But, you know, I had to pay him for like his time out there. Like it wasn't just a passion project for him. So like I paid everybody out first and then started to like try to recoup my expenses on that thing. And that was the only way to do it. Like, yeah, it's hypocritical, but like, I think for me, it was more about like inspiring people through the message of the film than it was like getting lost in the hypocrisy of like using social media and the internet at a time when like it was just taking off. Like that whole concept too of like getting off your phone, that was before like a lot of the studies about like how it has reduced social connection, how it increases all sorts of different like emotional stressors and all sorts of different things, especially for kids growing up. Like the amount of like screen time we have and use of all that, like there's multiple studies that are happening nowadays that we can see how it's having like a detriment on these social connections. That was before any of that happened. That was like 2013 that I pitched the film. Didn't come out till 2015. So that was like kind of ahead of its time. And then yeah, the irony now, fucking Carl calls me out all the time because now I've kind of gone on to be a social media influencer. But it's a tool, I think, to reach people where they need to hear it, you know? Especially like with the nerdy about nature stuff these days. Every time I like send a message or like see a message in my inbox from someone whose profile no longer exists because they've deleted it and gone off social media, like that to me is like a win. Like you have to reach people where they are in order to show them a better way or a different way. And like, so that was kind of like the early iteration of that. It's like, yeah, none of us are doing well being this connected to a point when it takes away from the present moment and being out skiing with friends. So if we can like disconnect and be in that present moment, we're going to have more fun. But like you have to tell the people who are on their phones to get off their phones before that's going to happen.
Yeah, so definitely ahead of the curve right there with that idea. And the movie happens, and I don't know if you make money on it or not. I think it's kind of a break even or a lose a little bit project. But I think what you do get out of that trip is a nickname, Baby Bird. Can you tell us how that came to be?
Man, I don't even know how Baby Bird happened. I think my hair, the water in Japan is really hard, and then especially the saunas and stuff, so like my hair would like puff up, and like I just had a poof on my head one day, and Carl, I think it was Carl, started calling me Baby Bird.
Yeah.
And then it just stuck, and like I'll embrace it. Baby Bird.
All right, so that's Tamashii. The next big thing we already talked about. You went to Australia, you got your MBA. Mm-hmm. I will say that you might have been following Anna Siegel a little bit around the world, it seemed like, because she went from K2 to Australia. You went to Australia. I don't know if it was that. And then she went to Canada, and you went to Canada as well. Were you following Anna?
No.
All right.
That's a funny correlation, though. What do you mean went from K2 to Australia? She's from Australia.
Well, you went from K2 to Australia.
Yeah. So Anna and I dated for a little bit.
Yep.
She showed me Australia, and then like when I was motivated to leave K2, it was for like a lot of different reasons. One of my favorite stories to kind of talk about with people, I was on like the sustainability team cohort with
Matt O'Loughlin.
With Matty O. Yeah. Matty O at K2, who's doing some really innovative, thoughtful shit when it came to like thinking about how we can have less of an impact with skis and do things differently. And I love, like, dude, he was so good. I haven't connected with Matty in a long time, but he at that point in time was like really pushing an envelope in skiing that I like wish K2 had gone down. And we were part of the sustainability team. And I remember one of the big things that we pushed for was to get recycling bins in the fucking office. This is 2013. Recycling bins. This is like what you did as like a feel-good thing in the fucking 80s. And we were pushing to get recycling bins in the office. It happened. I forget who the president was at the time.
Markovich.
We like pulls this big company-wide meeting. Hey gang, we're stepping forward into the new world. We've got recycling bins in the office. And it was like this big thing, feel-good moment. We're like making change happen. And then one of those nights I was at K2 staying late. The janitors came in and they took the trash, they took the recycling. And then I was leaving the building. You know, you had to go down those big steps to that warehouse to like get out the back door. And they're throwing all the recycling, all the trash into the same trash can. And I was just like, motherfucker, dude. This place, like, it's just such a crock of shit. That combined with a lot of things, like, I was interested in going to school for business because I understood the power of business in running the world and wanted to be able to do better through business. So what better way than to expand that by going to school for it? So I looked at going to school in other parts of the world. I ended up narrowing it down to places where I could speak English because
it's helpful,
which led me to Australia and New Zealand. I was going to go to school in Dunedin. That's one of those forks in the road that probably would have led down a cool path too. But I ended up choosing Melbourne because it was cool. I had been there multiple times with Anna and had kind of like seen the city, seen that part of the world. The surf was calling me. I also had like really bad back and knee problems happening. Like my meniscus was totally fucked at that time. So I needed to take some time off from skiing. So I went somewhere where I could surf and not have hard impacts on my knees. So I went to Australia, lived in the city for 1 year and like was commuting out to go surfing. And then the second year I moved to the surf town and commuted back into the city and just like spent all my time kind of the opposite of what I had done in Montana. I was just like surfing all the time and doing school on the side. And that was like a great experience. Yeah, and then from there, I moved back to Washington and then started seeing another girl in Canada and slowly made my move up to Canada. And then Anna followed me up there, I'd say. And I actually like helped her and gave her a bunch of contacts and tried to answer questions when she was getting her PR and citizenship, and stoked that her and her sister are up there now. It's a great migration, man. Canada's a great place to be.
It is a great place to be. Are you a citizen now? You've been up there, it seems like, for like a decade.
Dual citizen.
Oh, nice. Congratulations for you. I'd ask you how that happened, but there's not enough time in our podcast, and we need to talk about nerdy about nature. So the pandemic is happening, or it's about to happen. It's like December before the pandemic. All your friends are like, Ross, you are just bothering the shit out of us with all of the facts and figures and everything that you're telling us about nature. And you need to find a platform where you can tell other people about this so you can talk to us and just be our friend. And is that kind of the basis for how Nerdy About Nature started?
That's exactly it. It was a joke. Yeah, I was driving my friends and my partner at the time. We'd be going on walks and be like, oh my God, check out this 6-seater. See the way it twists. And she's just like rolling her eyes, just like, dude, you need to channel this somehow. This is nuts. And so started the Instagram account as a joke. And then the pandemic hit, all my film work just dried up and I had nothing to do but focus on this account that like my friends were like into, and it was fun and it was starting to gain traction. And being that I have a lot of friends in the ski and snow industry, they started sharing it to wider audiences. It grew and snowballed. And like for those of you who haven't checked out Nerdy About Nature, it started as me doing selfie videos within a minute, because that was the time limit on Instagram back then. Had to speak as fast as I could to kind of fit all this like fun facts and tidbits of info into a minute-long thing. So I kind of got this auctioneer ramble going on.
It's amazing.
Plus years of listening to some really great hip-hop. I think that's inspired me.
Okay.
Some Busta Rhymes. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's since evolved into like longer YouTube videos that are more educational and a podcast series. But that was kind of like the thing that I started focusing on. And then the little thing started happening in Canada throughout the pandemic known as the Fairy Creek blockades. I don't know how familiar you are with that as a U.S. citizen.
I didn't know that anything went on in Canada during the pandemic.
Really?
No, I'm kidding. I mean, I knew you guys existed, but...
Yeah, we're up there, just chipping away at our igloos. So, Fairy Creek blockade, it's the largest single act of civil disobedience in all of Canadian history. There was a lot of old-growth logging happening, still is continuing to happen on Vancouver Island. The last of these old-growth forest ecosystems that exist in the bioregion. Like everything in Washington and Oregon has long been either destroyed or is fragmented in tiny little pockets of national park that are still being encroached on by industry. So like the last kind of intact forest of the ecosystem that existed from Northern California through the Cascades, the Coast Mountains, and up through southern Alaska, all of this like beautiful cedar, spruce, hemlock forest is kind of broken down into these tiny fragments, with the biggest chunks of intact forest being on the southern coast of Vancouver Island. And basically there was a big social uprising trying to get people to stop this logging. So people were camping out, people were hunkered down, people were getting arrested, horribly violent attacks from the police on people. Nobody had badges or names on, all fully blackface, not following any protocols, excessive force, broken bones, abuse.
It's like America.
Yeah. But in the backwoods of these logging roads where there was no cell service, that like none of it was getting out and it was just like hearsay. So really big kind of like public outcry. So it was like peak news for like weeks through that summer of like 2020, I think. So at this time, people were really interested in Canada specifically about learning about the nuances of these old growth forests and forest ecosystems in general and what makes them so unique and different. And I feel like I had a great opportunity to like educate a lot of people on that and really keep the conversation going in a constructive way. And since then, we've seen a lot of like industry reform and changes kind of coming down the pipeline. It's all still very slow. Industry is still pushing back as much as they can to continue to log and keep the status quo. But it was a big reckoning event for a lot of people in Canada and British Columbia, especially when it comes to respecting Indigenous rights and land ownership and the concept of land back and who are the rightful stewards of this land and whether or not we should be just continuing to export our resources for economic values that only go to a slim percentage of the people, you know, the higher up, the man, like the people in control of these political and industrial systems that are the only ones who benefit at the detriment of the communities who live amongst these forests and the future of these forests, not only from an ecological perspective, but biodiversity, all of these different things. And it's something that still is happening in Canada. We're working really hard to try to save and protect the last of these ecosystems and ideally reform the logging industry so that we can create long-lasting, healthy ecological function in our forests. And so that's been a big role that I feel like I've played in that movement.
Well, you're speaking on a platform about these topics where nobody else is speaking about it, but all the young people are on this platform. So It's like you were speaking to the young people and giving this message that might not be trickling down to that level.
Especially from like a mix of the biology background I have, the kind of like just general fun fact, like I like legit like will have like textbooks at home that like on hydrology. There's this really great I can see by looking in your eye you're not into. There's this really amazing book from the BC Forestry about hydrology and the way that logging affects water flows in forest. That's just like a sick book that I've like read for fun. There's all this sort of like knowledge that I've gained because I'm like generally interested in it.
And you have been your whole life.
Yeah. And so with that combined with like the communication skills, I guess you can say, from being on social media, from making videos, from doing all the bumpers and goofy stuff, I kind of developed a knack for like sharing this stuff. And so it's been really great. People have like called me the next Bill Nye for just science communication stuff. Some of it's like so basic. It's like all things that we learned in 2nd and 3rd grade, you know, like how photosynthesis works. But like taking it and making it fun and engaging to where like there's a lot of really great informational stuff out there for like kids in elementary, middle, and high school. But I'm really trying to target that like older voting demographic who has the power to like change things. And so like it's been great like seeing the wheels turn in people's heads about things that they kind of vaguely understood and knew but weren't really fully aware of like the breadth that it all encompasses, the importance of it, and seeing them being like, oh, that's why it's important to have multi-layered canopies and all sorts of complexity in a forest ecosystem, because it protects us from wildfires, because wildfires are kind of an important thing we should be addressing in this era of anthropogenic climate change. So it's like tying all these bigger things together and getting people to become aware of not only their surroundings, but their impact and involvement with their surroundings, recognizing that we humans are active parts of these ecosystems, not apart from them. And we can no longer just look at the outdoor world as nature, as like a resource that we can use to build our economy, and not think about like the long lasting kind of impact it has on our societies, communities, the health of our children, the health of our watersheds, and like the landscapes that we live on. Like at a very basic fundamental level, like everything is impacted by the way that we treat nature. So it's an important thing.
To do what you're doing, you spent your whole life behind the lens. How hard was it to stand in front of the lens? And you're delivering like 4 minutes of so much content. There's no notes. I'm sure you don't have like a teleprompter in the wild. How many takes is it taking you to do this?
Hundreds, dude. Oh my God. There are ones where I will like quit and come back the next day.
No way. It's
oh
like
my
a trick.
God. Yeah. My throat's raw. I've run out of water. I carry fisherman's friends on me all the time, like just something to soothe my throat. Yeah. Some of it, I like nowadays I will like kind of think about a topic that I want to talk about and go out and like record that. But like when it started, I'd be like out in the woods and I'd see a tree and I'd be like, oh, this is a cool tree because of X, Y, and Z. And then I'd stop the video and I'd be like, oh shit, I should also mention this because this is pretty cool too. So then I would do it again and I'd say X, Y, and Z, and then also these other reasons, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd be like, oh, I should add this one. And then before I knew it, I'm like trying to cram all this information in like a 1 minute video because that was like how long you had to do it on Instagram. And yeah, it's just snowballed into a pretty unique, fun thing, but hoping to continue to keep that growing and like, yeah, educating people and continuing to inspire the current and next generation to be better stewards of the lands we all share, so we can all continue to go skiing and like doing all the fun things that we build our communities on, you know, like you think about like the richness in like the skiing and outdoor communities. Like these are all industries and people whose livelihood and identity is wrapped up in being outside and being in the outdoors in these spaces. Whether or not they're like super wild or remote spaces is negligible. It's like the fact that like these are functioning ecosystems and we need to get to a place where we can maintain that so we can continue to enjoy it and get all of these amazing benefits from it that we currently do, from timber and resources, sure, but also like community, spiritual values, recreational values, all the other things that ties our society together, you know?
Well, you're doing some amazing work and you're making it fun. And I think that's the whole thing is like, anybody can spew out a lot of information and it'll go in one ear and out the other. But if you make it fun and you kind of do it the way you're doing it, it'll help people retain it. And I think that's the most important part, especially for all of us people that really don't have a long attention span. Is like, we need to have something that's in our face, that's maybe quick and upbeat like you're giving, but it's got to be entertaining too. And you deliver that.
Yeah.
And I will say that that is the body of our podcast, but you are definitely not done yet, because with all my podcasts, I end them with something that I call Inappropriate Questions.
Yeah.
Normally, I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions, and they could be anything. And I did go to people, and they didn't want to go on the record. But that's fine, because I was like, you know what? You don't need to go on the record. I can read these questions as my own, but I'm just going to tell you, I did go to people. I'm not putting them on the record, but I am going to give you 3 inappropriate questions.
What, so like they didn't want their names to be included?
And they didn't want me to record their voices.
Oh,
and
what?
They didn't really ask. I just said,
who'd you ask?
I mean,
not the right people.
Definitely the right people. And I will start question number 1.
Hold on. If you don't mind. There's one more thing that I would like to add. If I don't know if you have time for it.
Yeah, I have time for it.
When we're talking about going down different paths and things, like just a reflection I had. When I was in school in Melbourne, one of the classes I took was kind of this like personal development course thing where you like looked at your life and did like a business plan for your life and the role you play in the world. And like, I'd say that one course was like probably, I got the most out of that, out of my entire schooling experience down in Australia. I remember talking with Anna about this at the time, who was just like a friend. Like Anna's like still one of my great friends, that like it gave me purpose to like where I see like my broader vision was like to educate and get people inspired to be outside. Initially, I was doing that through like ski videos and stuff and getting them like motivated to go skiing, because that skiing, builds connections to the outdoors to create a future generation that wants to care for and protect those outdoor spaces. Now I see that evolution being the nerdy about nature thing, where I'm like, okay, this is a better tool for me to use to fulfill that like higher vision of like ultimately finding ways to get people involved in the outdoor spaces to make them fall in love with it so they can enjoy it more, so we can act in ways to protect it for future generations. And that's a good little tangent.
All right, a final reflection from Ross Reid.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go into inappropriate questions, and I'm going to jump right into your first inappropriate question. And when you lived in LA, Spriggs came to visit you. You just won a year's worth of Chipotle, and the Chipotle was given to him in a deck of cards, 52 cards. Each one of them equaled a Chipotle burrito. So he eats his burrito, he clogs the toilet, and can you describe the fiasco of when Jeff Thomas finds out about this?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember Jeff Thomas being out of town, and Spriggs had left town after you clogged the toilet. You guys didn't tell Jeff Thomas.
Oh, was this when we had our apartment thing?
Yeah. And Jeff Thomas went to use the toilet. He drops a deuce or whatever he does. He flushes, and then he ends up standing on the toilet because everything starts overflowing, and there's corn and everything going all across like the bathroom and into your living room. You don't remember that at all?
I don't remember that. No, I feel like that's one of those things I've either blocked out entirely, or if we're being honest here, and Jeffy, I love you to death, but Jeffy has some tantrums. He can throw a tantrum from time to time. I feel like they've all kind of blended together.
All right, what's the best tantrum that you remember of Jeffy?
Oh, this one time the first one that came to mind, I'm just going to go with that. We were shooting the Powder Highway thing, a Toyota thing, through like interior Fernie, Nelson, kind of BC area, and Jeff had just gotten his first red camera. He had finally like made the move to get a red, and we were shooting powder coming through the trees, and Anna Siegel was there, and she came through and like turned a little bit too hard and ended up accidentally spraying Jeff and his brand new baby red. Shit hit the fan. No! Just like yelling in the woods, desperately trying to clean it, get the snow off the water. And like, I'm sure that's happened many times since then, but like his first time. And then that was like a big thing. Anna's like, did I do anything wrong? I feel so guilty. It's like, you did fine. It's fucking skiing. Like, that's what happens. Snow gets in places. But yeah, that shut down the day pretty fast.
Who's got better tantrums, Pete Alport or Jeff Thomas?
Ooh, they're both different. Jeff's are good because they're valid, I'd say. They come from a place of like, he's not wrong. Yeah, he like blows up a bit, but like, that's fine. But Pete's are always good because they usually end in violence. And like, and sometimes that's just, you're like, I hope I'm not on the receiving end of that.
Perfect. That's awesome. All right, we'll go into question number 2. And I will say, I remember getting a phone call from another K2 employee who was with you, who you and him were heading to the airport in Denver from a shoot or something. And you guys had called me and you were idiots just rambling on the phone. And you're like, there's no way we can get on our flight. If we enter the airport, we're going to get arrested. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Barely. God, I think we had like eaten just like too many weed gummies or something. It was weed, right?
It was weed and alcohol. I think you had Jameson too.
Well, we had stayed up late, and then I think we like had some weed gummies, and we're like, oh, we need to finish these because this was Denver. It was like they were one of the first ones to legalize having weed and stuff.
They were the first.
Yeah, and we were down there for SIA, and I have a history with like security and border crossings, which you didn't even really talk to me about. The Canada one, the grenade. No, so like when I go into places where there's like high security, I'm already stressed out. And at this point, it was like 6 a.m. We had been up all night, and we're going through security at Denver International Airport, which is like one of the, I would say, the worst airport in the world. I've been to quite a few airports, and I hate Denver. I hate going to Colorado for any reason because of that airport.
Okay.
And like that security thing, everybody can see you. You're like going through the rat rate. And like, I just remember being like cold sweat, like so stressed getting through there. That's really all I remember. Horrible. Yeah.
All right. Could you tell us the grenade story?
The grenade story. So this is one of my favorite stories to tell, especially to people who don't know it or don't know me. It might be kind of a long-winded one. I'll try to keep it succinct. Okay. So I was fresh out of college, out of Bozeman, working for Poor Boyz. I had done that internship through the summer. I ended up getting a job, first real ski job. And one of my first shoots, this is like early December, I was going up north to Whistler to meet up with Jeff Thomas, Mike Hennetuck. Who else was there? I think Matt Margetts and Dane Tudor, I want to say, because he was kind of around like with Jeffy a lot at that time. So I was going up to meet them to film some skiing early December, and I was super loose crossing the border. Like I had like long hair down to my shoulders, maybe a little bit dreaded because I was just like not on purpose, but just like a rat's nest. Dirty Ross. I wasn't really smoking that much weed back then. Like at that point, I was like kind of phasing that out, and I don't smoke weed or anything anymore. But going through that, like, it's just super loose, get to the border, and they're like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to shoot some ski movies. Like, how long are you going for? I'm like, I don't know, a couple days for the storm. Just like, not the things you say at the border.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, go over there. We're going to search your car. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I got nothing to hide. So I go in, and for those of you who have been to the Peace Arch crossing and between Washington and BC, if you go into the building, it's this big oval-shaped building, 2 stories. And I go in and I talk to the lady at the desk, and they're like, okay, wait over there. So I go sit down, and the chairs, the waiting areas are kind of at the end of this oval, and then the front doors to like the parking area is at the other end of the oval. And I'm sitting there, I'm just kind of watching like Canadian news on the TV there, and I noticed people in the upstairs start like grabbing papers and like not full sprint, but like running to the doors, like clearing out. Like I'm like people are like ready to get off work, you know, like something's going on. And then people downstairs start doing it. I'm just kind of like looking around like what's going on here? And then the double doors at the end of the oval open up, like both of them open up. It's like a movie. Flying V formation, the Mounties come in. There's these 2 guys. They've got like full on assault rifles and they come straight up to me. And I'm just like long hair. I think I left my beanie in my car, so my long hair is like all matted to my sweaty, like scared forehead. They're like, are you Ross Reid? And I'm like, yeah. Like, do you want to tell us why there's a grenade under the front seat of your car? And I'm just like ghost white, like color drops. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, we found a grenade under the front seat of your car. So what they end up doing, they close all of the borders between Washington State and BC for 4 hours. And I was seeing a girl in Bellingham at the time, and I had stopped at her place and had a drink and dinner on the way up. And so this was like late. I think I got to the border at like 9 at night. And so close the borders between Washington State and BC. They like strip search me. Full, like, they're doing good cop, bad cop routine where they're like, what's with the grenade? We know you got a grenade, and like doing all this stuff. And then I ended up kind of remembering at one point that in my kind of film career at Montana State, me and some buddies, because that was like when free skiing was like super gangster and people were like throwing gun signs and stuff.
Yeah.
So me and my buddy Andy and Logan, we did this like stupid like mock video where we got like a bunch of army supplies from an Army Navy supply store, like machine gun ammo belts and fake grenades and stuff, and we were like skiing with them, like just stupid.
Yeah.
But I had like mistakenly, you know, I had a really dirty car back then, and I had apparently that little grenade that I thought I had lost had wedged itself under the front seat of my car. And so they find this, think I'm trying to smuggle explosives into Canada. They call the bomb squad. They bring the dogs out. They rip apart my car. Like every time I had that car, every time I took a hard right after that, the whole steering column would fall into my lap. Like nothing, like it was, they destroyed it, thinking I was smuggling explosives. And when I remember this, I'm like, oh my God, I know what it is. Like, let me go out there. Like, too late. Bomb squad's on the way. So yeah, they do that, find out it's fake. And then they're like walking in. I remember sitting there. There were 2 really frustrating things about the way that this wrapped up. The first is we go in there, or it like wraps up, and they come down like, all right, you were right. It was a fake grenade. But, you know, what do you got to say about all that weed we found in your car? And then he's like, oh, I'm just joking. But like, come on, like you don't smoke weed anyway. And I'm just like, dude, I've been here 4 hours under gunpoint. Yeah. Like, you've had me, like, search, like, now is not the time to make a joke about me maybe smoking weed. Sorry, my hair's long. And like, so that was frustrating. And then the next morning, it was in the news. It was, like, in the newspapers. But the next morning, I was 21 at the time. The article is like, man in his late 20s shuts down the border because of explosives. And I'm like, late 20s, dude? What the fuck? So... yeah, but for that, I was like red flagged for well over a decade. Every time I go into Canada, even when I had residency and was like going in between, every time for a solid decade, I would have to get out of the car, go into the office, explain the situation. And occasionally like I'd meet a border guard who'd be like, oh yeah, that was you. I was working that night. And I'd be like, pretty funny, right? And they'd be like, not really. It's like, fuck. Yeah. But this one time, just recently actually, because now it's off my record. And there's this border crossing guard, Woo, if you're out there and you're listening, you're the man. Just want to shout him out. Because this one time I was coming back and forth, and my partner at the time, she had flown down, and I was bringing her bags because she couldn't cross the border because it was the pandemic. It was all this stuff. And so I'd gone to the border 3 times that day trying to like get across to like meet her in Seattle because she was flying down to meet my parents. Really funny. This is like the first time she had met my parents. So stressful situation. And I'm at the border crossing again for the 3rd time. And this guy, Woo, comes out and he's like, okay, oh yeah, okay, I see what's going on here. You know, I've got a girlfriend in Vancouver. Like, this happens all the time. I'll go in and see if I can get this removed from your account. I'm like, that'd be awesome, man. So then he goes into the building. 5 minutes later, he comes out and he's got some papers in his hand and he looks at me from across the parking lot here. He's like, oh, hey, Mr. Reid, you don't happen to have any, and he goes, like he throws a grenade and plugs his ears, and I just bust up laughing, and he comes over to me and he's just like, oh man, that's so funny that was you. I was working that night. I tell all my buddies that story. So funny. And we like fully like caught up and laughed about how ridiculous that was. And then it was removed from my record, and I've never had to talk about it at the border again.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. I'm going to ask you your final inappropriate question.
Right.
I know we don't even need a final one after that story, but have you ever been confused for a squatter before?
In LA, I think so.
Yeah, in LA is when it would have been.
Yeah. So that first summer in LA, that was like paying rent. I didn't have a real room, or I was like sharing a room with someone or like sleeping on the couch. So it was LA summer. I'm from Montana. I was like, I'm sleeping outside in a hammock. This weather's great. So I like slept in the backyard for like a solid summer, just like in a hammock. And there were a couple times when like the neighbors would like file complaints, and we had a party one night and no one knew whose it was, but they had to pull a used condom from their dog's mouth the next morning. So they came over pissed. And we were like, no one had any idea what they were talking about. Like, you got parties going on. There's condoms in our backyard. There's someone who's been sleeping in your backyard in a hammock for a month. And just like not stoked suburbanites. And it was like, all right, that's probably fair. I get that now. But I was living on a budget, man. It was great.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is Inappropriate Questions. And that's our podcast. And I really feel like it's cool that I have so many friends doing so much cool shit. And what you're doing is the most unique. I mean, you've taken a passion that you've had since you were like in 2nd grade, a totally nerdy passion for at that, and you've kind of delivered information in a fun, cool way. And it's cool to see a dirtbag ski bum transition out of being a dirtbag ski bum and into being a dirtbag nerdy about nature type dude, and being able to share all of this stuff with us about nature and what's going on with the planet, and doing it in a fun way, which makes it digestible for me. And I actually watch your videos because I like you, and I'm blown away with how fast you can speak and not say any ums or ahs in everything that you do. And you do it so fast all the time. And it's so crazy to me. Yeah. And Ross, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your friendship. And that is our podcast.
Epic, man. Thanks so much. Stoked to be here.
All right. That's it.
That was great, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you.
So that was time with Ross Reid. And what makes Ross's story so fascinating to me is how much of a creative that dude is. While he has an MBA in business, you can tell by his sponsor list that selling himself is not his forte. The thing is, Ross is one of the few influencers making a real difference in creating entertaining and educational content. So if you're a brand out there that doesn't greenwash and wants to make a difference and support what Ross is doing, hit me up and I'll put you in contact with him. His 500,000 followers wants his content to keep coming, and I'm sure at some point Ross is going to have to think about paying the bills, so he's going to need you as well. That's the podcast. Now it's time for the review of the week. It's another 5-star review that's titled The Best, and it comes from As If I Needed Another Rating. And really, I do need another rating. All these ratings help the show grow, and there's like an algorithm thing which I don't understand. These ratings help make it shoot up the charts. It's greatly appreciated. But let's get into that review right now. Mike has had almost everyone on and consistently gets the best interviews from his guests. The guests, mostly, get pretty comfortable with Mike and are able to have a dialogue which makes for an easy listen. I say mostly because when it seems like the story makes someone a little bit squeamish, he still asks the question. Keep them coming, bud. Well, thank you very much for that review. I love pushing and asking that question even more and more. Yes, sometimes it'll make people uncomfortable, but really my job is to get the story out, and while it's not an always comfortable thing to do, I am able to push and prod and get the story out in a way that's not really offending my guests or pissing them off, but making them want to share a little bit more. And I think at the end of the day, when they hear the edit, they appreciate what I was able to do as well. I'm glad you recognize it. And for that, if you email me at mike@thepowellmovement.com and put your mailing address in that email, I will send you something special from the vaults over here at the Powell Movement. Thank you for doing that. For anybody else who wants to submit a review, here's how you do it. Hit the podcast icon on your iPhone. If you have another phone other than an iPhone, I can't help you right now. But after you push that podcast icon, then you're going to search for the Powell Movement. And even if you already subscribe to the podcast, which I hope all of you do, you still need to do this. Third, you're going to click my logo. Fourth, you're going to scroll down to where you see the stars. You can 5-star rate me and just leave, or you can 5-star rate me and review the podcast. And if I read that review on the show, that's when you're going to win something. Thank you for taking the minute or so it takes to do that. It's greatly appreciated. And finally, please support the brands that make this show happen. They are Elon Skis, Outdoor Research, Stanley, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, and Best Day Brewing. Have a great week, everyone.